Hi, Father Ian Bain Houston here. I'm here with Rob Agnelli. We're going to be talking about the 10 virtues of Mary. In this video, we're getting into heroic patience of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And, we didn't really kind of brainstorm a kind of segue into our experience, but I know as I get older, it's, we experience, as we get older, we get more patient, right? Like when we're younger, we're more impulsive. We want things more immediate gratification. Though Amazon's not helping with that these days, right? I think I ordered a book like a couple hours ago. It's like, I want the book. Oh,
it's downstairs in your car.
Gary Lou Lagrange, I ordered it this morning.
Yeah, it's downstairs in your car.
Yeah, probably, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They float like with a drone over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, like I keep harping back to the adjectives that that Saint Louis de Montfort uses, and the idea of heroic patience, where it feels like any patience is heroic. So I have a little bit of trouble grasping like just how patient.
Well, here's the challenge though. So if we look at some of these virtues as in our discussion as like counterbalancing each other, last time we talked about how the Virgin Mary makes haste. So understood improperly, somebody could view that as being impulsive, but yet in a certain way, she was willing to endure profound discomfort to such a degree that most people would lose their cool, right?
Yeah, and she was unwilling to, like in a lot of ways, what patience does is absorbs an evil.
Yeah.
Right? Like absorbs the evil in the situation.
Oh, and that's a good image.
It can be a simple thing, right? Like it can be a simple thing of I'm waiting in line for something. Lines are evil, I'm absorbing it. Like,
yeah.
And not being this conduit of passing it on. So I think that in a lot of ways, that's exactly what she did, right? Because she was witness to and suffered a lot of evil in her earthly life.
That I think we could I think we could flesh it out for a second. There's a lot of confusion in the modern mind of what the emotions are. In the classical mind, it's actually so profoundly simple that once you see it, you have a hard time unseeing it. The emotions are the passions. They're visited upon us by external sense stimuli or external objects.
Yeah, the external things stimulate this bodily response, right?
Exactly. And so our positive emotions are moved by love, but all of our positive emotions move us towards something. All of our negative emotions move us away.
Right.
So the patient person, actually, I think, isn't this probably the root of the Latin? Maybe is like
passio means like passive, right? Where we get.
Yeah, I think there is this idea of absorbing.
Yeah.
So when the Blessed Virgin Mary encountered negative sense and stimuli, and we were thinking of a few examples, like the road to Egypt or the Passion, where she's there at the foot of the cross. The emotions come to her; she experiences them, but they don't overwhelm her reason. She endures them. She absorbs them.
Yeah, well, she absorbs the objects that are causing them, right? Not just she's not just battling her emotions. She's actually fighting against the evil that's present, right?
Yeah.
Which is really important for us to get. Like, it's not just, oh, she's really good at controlling herself. And because some people just by temperament, right, they're just really slow to respond to things. That's not a patient person. Yeah, right?
Well, that's in the classic Thomistic, and there's an image I want to do, remind me to come back to this so I don't lose the point, is in Aquinas, there's three ways we can fall into sin with the emotions. Excess of the emotion is ordered towards the wrong thing, or the absence of the emotion.
Yeah.
So anger is the classic example. If you're too angry about the right thing, that's a sin. If you're angry about the wrong thing, that's a sin. But if you're not angry at all, that's also potentially a sin, when you ought to be angry.
Yeah.
So the Blessed Virgin Mary, let's take anger. She would have felt angry about the right things in the right proportion at the right time.
Yeah.
And for the sake of some action that was being called upon by the circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, at the foot of the cross, she definitely experienced not just sorrow, but anger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was an injustice. A grave injustice was being visited upon her son. But her anger would have, because the emotions motivate us towards action. So we should experience anger. We should experience all of these. And Aquinas talks about 11 principal passions. They motivate us to accept the good and reject the evil.
Yes.
That's the whole orientation of the emotions. Coming back to this image, one of the things I love to give, actually I gave it, it was a really fun story. A couple I was, you actually probably know him, but a mother I was talking to, her son was being bullied. And I said, the thing is because, a lot of times with parents with like their kids being bullied, like, oh, you got to go to the teacher and it's like, it was a little boy. I'm like, really? No, probably going to the teacher is probably not
You're making me feel better as a parent. That would not be my response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think, you got to like teach him to kind of stand up for himself, but also in the same hand, what you don't want, especially a kindergartner, is to haul off and like hit the kid and get suspended.
Yeah.
So I showed her a video of this guy confronting a gorilla, and it's this guy who goes out among the gorillas, and when the gorilla would charge him, he would just stand still and like disinterested. And the gorilla would come and it would pound its chest and then it would go away. And what I say to people in that situation, if he fought the gorilla, he was dead. If he ran from the gorilla, he was dead. The only option that would make sense. And that's, I think, gets at perhaps a little bit of the self-control and the self-mastery, more self-mastery is the best way to put it, of the Blessed Virgin Mary and of our Lord. Like they clearly see the gorilla, like they clearly experience our emotions, but their reason is never hijacked.
Yeah, I like that image of patience allows us to stand our ground. This is where heroic patience comes in.
Yeah.
Allows us to stand our ground in the midst of, this is not necessarily, you're not being aggressive, right?
Yeah.
But you're not backing off either.
Yeah.
Like you're standing your ground against whatever the evil is that's coming at you, refusing for it to overtake you, to either lead you into it or become a victim to it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the beautiful things for our own culture, right? Like Our Lady was never a victim, right?
Yeah.
And she would never allow herself to be like labeled a victim. And this idea of being able to, in the face of injustice, to still love.
Yeah.
Right. And not be identified by the evil.
And we forget that was the idea of Martin Luther King, Jr., with civil disobedience, which it wasn't just to get arrested, but they concretely disobeyed laws that were unjust, the segregation laws, and they stood firm in it. They were not aggressive, but they weren't victims either.
Yeah, and patience comes in because that takes patience, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting in a Birmingham jail. That takes patience. Yeah. Right? And not to lash out, and almost to a heroic degree, because the temptation to give in to that will only then, now you become a party to it, yeah. Right? Whereas, and that in a lot of ways, the heroic, like patience is a sub-virtue of courage, right? Like it in the face of something.
Yeah, and what the world teaches, I hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble, the world teaches to rage against the machine, right? To rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah.
Where this Christian outlook is enduring the evil, but not succumbing to it. It's kind of a middle ground.
Yeah, and to understand though that the world, in a certain sense, is right, because without the cross, standing firm against evil makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's only the cross that, like the ultimate, like Christ on the cross, won the grace for us to be patient in the face of evils, because what he's going to do is what he always does, right? He's going to save souls through it. Mm-hmm. And we know that when somebody treats us poorly and we're patient in response, that it's actually changing them more than it is us, because it's now opened something up, right? And the fruit and the side of Christ has opened up, and the fruit of the cross is everywhere. Yeah. So we have to understand that we're marked in this world for suffering. Mm-hmm. Like we're Christians, that's our default position, so that we can participate with Christ in saving the world. And I think if we grasp our mission, which is what Our Lady did, right? She totally understood her mission was co-redemptive. Yeah. And so that heroic patience, actually, who knows how many souls have been saved because of Our Lady's heroic patience, right? Not to mention, even the men around during the crucifixion, how many of them were like, wait, what's going on here? This mother acts totally different than any other mother that has been here watching their child be crucified.
That's wild. That's a good thing to think about. That's a good thing to think about. So shifting to the practical a little bit, I think that's a good way to end that part. The one thing I've been thinking about a lot with the practical, we were talking about this before, is, so it's funny, this is the beauty of the spiritual life there is almost like a paradoxical. So last video when we talked about love, we talked about haste. We talked about don't delay in something. If you delay in something, you cease to rush towards the all. But then paradoxically, maybe it's when evil is visited upon us or when there's strong negative emotions, it is good, I've found it is good to cultivate patience to just delay your response a little bit. So it almost seems like a contradiction, but that's the beauty of the spiritual life, is holding these things in paradoxical tension. That when evils are visited upon us, if we can just delay our reaction just a little bit, and just delay, somebody says something that's hurtful, just delay it, just delay your reaction for a moment. You encounter something that's off, slow down yourself for just a second, right?
Yeah, and even just to understand that, your reaction like starts a chain reaction, right?
Yeah.
In every way, right? Like your patient reaction turns everything back towards the good.
Yeah.
Right. Your impatient just keeps it going.
You're
right?
absorbing of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And suddenly like a new avenue has been, and even just like as a parent, right? Obviously, like if you want to learn patience, I'll have you come over and you can hang out with us. But like,
I could have you hear a few hours of confession. Say the same thing.
I guess there's that too.
We all have our sin.
Yeah. So, but knowing like that if I respond impatiently, like there's a little soul that I'm going to crush, right? Like that, in the most innocent way, like kids don't necessarily like do things deliberately, or it's usually the problem is me, not them. And just knowing that your reaction, what it does to other people, and so it's almost like compassion ahead of time, just like suffer the whatever the thing that's causing.
Well, this suffers the idea of absorbing. I mean, enduring.
Yeah.
Isn't that part of the root of the word suffer? Like, I
mean, definitely. So, but I think for me, like that has been, parenting is a school of patience, just like I'm sure, dealing with
every part.
But that has, like, when I learned how to do that, when I learned how to just sit with it for a minute, sit and think about, like, okay, what is this reaction going to do? And not lashing like immediately, right? Yeah. That changes everything.
I think the thing that I've had to learn to be most patient with is my own limitations. Because one of the biggest challenges I have as a priest is on a routine basis, I have to deal with the fact that I'm constantly like questioning, did I spend enough time with that person? Did I portray the right emotion? Because there's a lot of situations where it's really tough. Like somebody walks up to you spontaneously and they have this huge insight or they have this huge suffering, and you might be tired, you might be on your way to something, and you give them your time, but like in the back of your mind, you're like, did I like really give them my time? Did I give enough? And like you can never know. Because it's a weird dynamic, because you can never know if you gave somebody enough time, because like you can't ask them about it afterwards.
Yeah. Are we good here?
How
are you feeling right now?
Did I make you feel well? And sometimes the problem is like with people, as a priest, is you might have done what was totally right, and they still don't feel better.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you; it's about them, right? Yeah. Or you did totally what but that's part of and having to be patient with my limitations. Because it's a classic one. One of the things I struggle with, like when I'm really tired, is I have a hard time emoting, like just being like friendly, just smiling, because it's not that I'm in a bad mood, but it's not like I'm like mad at the person. Mm-hmm. It's just I just don't have any I don't have any energy in the tank to like project anything.
Yes.
So I'm just like, I'm sorry right now. I have nothing to give, but I can listen. I can endure it. But yeah. It's interesting with that.
Yeah, I think a habit I developed a long time ago, which kind of went hand in hand with sort of giving myself to Our Lady, was asking her to help me anticipate people's needs. Yeah. Right? Because she's the master of that, right? That's what we were. And it is amazing how many times she delivers, but it also, in the end, like, she's also giving me the thing I need, which is patience, mm-hmm. right? Like, so that in anticipating just how much when I go into a situation, I just ask her, like, help me anticipate people's needs here.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's amazing how many times that she delivers on that. And I'm attentive, and it seems to me I'm attentive in the right amount. and interiorly I have like a supernatural gift of patience because I am not by nature a patient man.
That makes perfect sense. Heck yeah, well, I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. Father Ian Van Heesen here with Rob Agnelli talking about the heroic patience of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Thanks.